in the global scale. Now, what are those sectors that are energy intensive, and how this can be replaced with using the hydrogen is shown in this graph on your right hand side. So you can see with the time, you will see that the change in the energy mix, especially the percentage contribution of the hydrogen in the existing tech industries like transport, power generation, ammonia production, or in the grid injection, or in the buildings and in the refineries. So let's see for the industry. So you can see that the industry requires fuel, whether it's fossil fuel or renewable energy. But the estimate shows that the industry will require, currently it's from around 51 million tons of hydrogen. So they will need around 140 million tons by 2050. So this is kind of a substantial growth in the industry, and mainly because of the demand in shifting to the decarbonization of the industries. The other sector would be the transport, right? Even though transport has a very small amount of in the hydrogen, but in the future it will be a major market for hydrogen, and that's around 100 million tons in 2050. Now, refineries will be the interesting, because as you can see that mostly oil refineries are now using fossil fuel oil, but in the future they will not be able to use oil to refine. So therefore, you will see a drastic reduction in the amount of oil that is required. So the same thing, you will see there is a decrease in the amount of hydrogen that is required to run these refineries. So that's only the major standout of hydrogen demand in the refinery sector. Now, ammonia as a fuel, yes, ammonia will be the future for producing urea as a fertilizer, and also for the transport sector, especially the shipping industry. So you will see ammonia would be the major fuel in the future for transport, especially the long distance transport by the shipping industry. So you will see a drastic increase in the ammonia production. Now, what are the pathways? Now, as I said, that currently we actually use only the fossil fuel energy to produce hydrogen, right? Around 90 million tons of hydrogen was produced in 2020, and that almost 80% came from fossil fuels. But in the future, as you can see, that there will be only mainly 3 technologies that will be used. The electrolysis, which is basically using solar energy and splitting the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. So because you're using solar energy, it's a renewable energy source. So you are actually consider it as a green hydrogen. Now, the other 2 pathways are considered as the thermochemical. Now, one is the gasification. So that is you are actually using the natural the biomass and gasify it to produce hydrogen through syngas. And the other one is using the natural gas, methane, and then converting that into hydrogen using steam methane reforming. So these are the 3 main technologies. They have their own advantages and disadvantages depending on how you see it. For example, the electrolysis is considered as the more clean technology, but you need a lot of water, right? So the water footprint is really enormous. And you can see that you need about 9 kgs of water to produce 1 kg of hydrogen. So this is where people are trying to understand, if you are heavily dependent on only electrolyzers or electrolysis, then where is this amount of water that can be produced? So some are thinking of using seawater and using desalination plants to produce this water, and use that water to produce hydrogen through solar electricity or or through wind electricity. And then it is estimated that from 0.03% current hydrogen production through electrolysis, we may need to jump to 61% by 2050 to meet our hydrogen demands. Similarly, the gasification and steam methane reforming, they also have large footprints either in terms of the water requirements or also the carbon dioxide emissions. So for gasification, you need around 40 to 85 kgs of water to produce 1 kg of hydrogen. And for steam reforming, you need 13 to 18 kgs of water to produce 1 kg of hydrogen. So these are those kind of technology. They are available now, and they are almost in kind of what do you call full scale. Soon they will be a kind of industries that are actually developing around on these three technologies. Now, the cost of production of hydrogen, this is the main driver for for fine tuning the technologies so that we actually can achieve the minimum the ideal targeted cost of production. Now, at the bottom of the screen, you can see the hydrogen production cost as per the US, the benchmark is around $1 per kg of hydrogen. And that's the goal we have set in, because currently we produce hydrogen from natural gas in the fossil fuel gas around $0.5 to $1.7 per kg of hydrogen. So that is the fossil fuel electricity. But as the renewable energies technologies are very expensive, so you will find it very difficult. So the cost of production of renewable hydrogen is here, around $3 to $8 per kg of hydrogen. But the main cost of that, the hydrogen production, is the electricity. So if we can handle that electricity production costs by 50 or 90% reduction, so you will be able to cut down the total cost for the hydrogen production from renewables. So this is the green one, what you see. So we are at this moment here at around $8, from $3 to $8 per kg, but our target is to bring it down to around $2 per kg of hydrogen. So based on this idea of how much the target that is set is to Australia to bring the cost of hydrogen production to $2 per kg, I started to work on a new project, and the results of that project I am presenting. Now, earlier in the slide, I told there are three technologies that are used for hydrogen production. That is the electrolysis, the other one is gasification, and the third one is the steam reforming of methane. Now, I'm going to present a way of producing hydrogen using microbes. Okay, so we can also use bacteria to produce hydrogen biologically. Now, what you're seeing on this slide is called the anaerobic digestion technology. This is basically a microbial process where bacteria convert the organic matter into biogas under anaerobic conditions. Now, this biogas is mainly made up of methane and carbon dioxide. And this is the standard way of what we produce. All these four reactions that happen in this biogas process will show that there is some hydrogen production in the pathways. But what we do is we optimize the processes in such a way that we can actually produce hydrogen and methane in the same AD process. And then the produced hydrogen and methane can be used for heat and electricity production, or even cleaned up and use it as a vehicle fuel or injected into the grid. Now, how do we do it? So the same process, what you saw earlier, I am trying to block the utilization of the hydrogen, right? So in the earlier slide, you can see a lot of hydrogen is produced during the conversion of sugars, amino acids, and long-chain fatty acids to organic acids and alcohol. So that hydrogen will be consumed in the end by methanogens to produce methane. Now what we need to do is to separate these bacteria into not able to utilize this hydrogen. Okay, so there's methanogens which will need to use this hydrogen and carbon dioxide to produce hydrogen. We will separate them into two stages. So this is what I'm showing here. Normally, all the reactions happen in one reactor, but now we separate them into two processes. So you have the hydrogen production in the first stage, where the hydrolysis and the acidogenesis and estrogenesis of the materials, organic materials happens. And the last one is where the organic acids that are produced will be fed into this second reactor, and you produce the methane. So this is called a two-stage anaerobic digestion process. So the goal of this project is to produce hydrogen and methane through two-stage anaerobic digestion of the lignocellulosic feedstock. Now, what I did is that I have collected a lot of feedstocks in agriculture or even from the sugar industry. So a lot of lignocellulosic, so almost 20 something odd feedstocks. You can see that they are from sweet potato, carrot, cassava, sweet sorghum, sugarcane industries waste, and also some weeds from the roadside, or even the agriculture waste like wheat straw, oat straw, and like that. So all that feedstocks we have screened. So we use this kind of studies where we add bacteria, mixed culture bacteria that is rich in producing hydrogen, or which can also produce methane. So we put them in separate assays. As you can see, these bottles. So the 24 agricultural lignocellulosic materials are incubated in these batch reactors with the bacterial culture, and then we monitor the gas production. So you can see here the hydrogen production curves for all these feedstocks, right? So with time, you'll see the gas production is evolved over a period of time. And among these 24 feedstocks, I see that wheat straw was the best. Okay, so among these 24 feedstocks, I see that wheat straw was the best feedstock because it has produced much higher amount of hydrogen per gram of material, and that is what I have kept in mind. And then we do the same thing for the methane production assays, and you can see that the 24 methane production assays are here, and the gas production evolved over a period of time. And then I also take the amount of methane that is produced, and then in that also I see that wheat straw came as number one, the amount of methane that is produced. So from both hydrogen and methane production, wheat straw was the best feedstock among these 24 feedstock study. So you can see here also the hydrogen content. So in the biogas, how much hydrogen and carbon dioxide is present, or how much methane is present. So we can see that in terms of hydrogen content, the cassava has the highest hydrogen content, followed by wheat straw and barley, right? So the blue bars shows the amount of hydrogen content in the biogas. On your right-hand side is the methane content, and then you will see here all the circles shows the methane content, and in that also you'll see that cassava is the highest methane content. So what it shows that the feedstock characteristics plays an important role in the amount of methane or hydrogen production, right? So the carbohydrates or the feedstocks that have highest amount of carbohydrates will give you the highest or best methane and hydrogen yields compared to other materials which have low carbohydrates. So starch and carbohydrates are the best, followed by protein, and then the last one is the lipid content. Now the based on the organic matter, the hydrogen and methane yields are shown here. So you can see that based on the organic matter. So organic matter is the actual material that is actually converted to methane or hydrogen. That is the organic matter, right? So based on the organic matter, you will see that cassava plant, it has the highest hydrogen, followed by barley and wheat straw. But based on the fresh matter, the amount of material, the fresh matter, you will see that wheat straw came the first, as I showed you earlier. So wheat straw followed by barley, right? And then you have the sweet sorghum. So you can also see that it's the same trend for the methane also. So that's why the better the carbohydrates, or the higher the amount of carbohydrates or starch, the better the hydrogen or methane yields. So from the batch studies, you move on to the reactor studies. So what is now, we know that wheat straw was the best substrate. So we move now to the two-stage reactor study. So as you saw earlier, that we should have 2 reactors to study this process. So the same thing. So we'll have a small reactor to produce hydrogen and a larger reactor to produce the methane. So I will use the wheat straw as the feedstock, and that's my first reactor where hydrogen is produced. And this is a big reactor, which is the second reactor where the effluent from the first reactor is fed to the second reactor. So then I produce the methane in this reactor. So the conditions are here. So the small reactor, where it's called as a hydrogen reactor, is only 2 liters, and working volume is 1 liter. And I operate at 37 degrees Celsius, and the retention time is around 2 days. So these are more technical terms that are used for operating a biogas reactors. Then we monitor the gas production. What is the quality of the gas production? What's the hydrogen content? What's the pH? And we have to optimize the process. Okay, so this is basically, as this conference is about how to optimize a process using the data. So this is how we actually optimize the process. So it is not a blindly running in reactors, but we need to take the data and then control the process, bioprocesses, so that you can actually optimize the hydrogen and the methane yields. So on the left-hand side, this whole chart is for the hydrogen reactor. And on the right-hand side, this whole chart is for the methane reactor. Now you can see on the top, we are feeding. This is the amount of material that is fed, is shown in the black lines. And then you can see the amount of hydrogen production. So hydrogen production increase with increase in the amount of material that fed to the reactor. And then you can also see what's the hydrogen content in the gas that is produced. So you can see that it increases steadily with the increase in the amount of organic material that is being added to the reactor. So we notice that we get at least 50% of the gas as hydrogen. And that's really excellent, because if you want to feed it to a natural gas grid, the maximum amount of hydrogen that you can feed is 10%. And mixing the hydrogen with the methane, which nowadays we call it as hythane. Hythane means hydrogen and methane. Okay, we combine these two terms together and call it as hythane. So the mix of hydrogen, 10% of hydrogen with the biomethane, will improve the calorific value of the gas when you are injecting into the natural gas grid. So that's why we are doing this research to see that whether we can get a high quality biogas that contains hydrogen and methane. So this is one of the most important characteristic of this biogas hydrogen reactor, is that it is optimized to produce hydrogen only at the pH of around 5.5. And you see a lot of organic acids are produced. Now, these organic acids, they are not consumed in the hydrogen reactor. So that's why we are connecting that to the second reactor, where all the organic acids like acetic acid, propanic acid, butyric acid, they will be converted into methane in the second reactor. And then you can see that the methane production also increases with increase in the feeding rates, and it stabilizes because we are only feeding at a fixed rate of 2 grams of organic matter per liter per reactor. And it has a very good methane content. It also has more than 50% methane. So overall, it shows that the two-stage hydrogen and methane production is feasible. Now let's do what's the actual values we see. So for us, we saw that the methane content, the hydrogen content is good. We can get around 36% to 44% of hydrogen in the hydrogen reactor, and then about 50% of hydrogen in the hydrogen reactor. And the yields are also excellent. We can get about 63 milliliters of hydrogen per day of hydrogen, or around 240 to 271 milliliters per day of methane. So using that data, we try to create what we call a feasibility study. Wow, so that means that is that feasible? Can we use this two-stage biological process where the bacteria actually convert the organic materials from agriculture waste to produce hydrogen? Now, the targets of hydrogen is, you can see that we want to produce around 220 kg per day of hydrogen, and the cost of production has to be around $2 per kg of hydrogen. So with that, I made this big kind of feasibility study, and you have my first reactor here, and it has to be around 260 cubic meters. And then I have two second stage reactors, that is 2 methane reactors of 3,000 cubic meters. So you can also have 6,000 cubic meters of one methane reactor, or you split that into two. So overall, we need around 17,500 tons of sugar wheat straw per annum to achieve this 220 kg per day of hydrogen. So the material will be fed to this first reactor, and then the effluent from this hydrogen reactor will then be fed to these 2 methane reactors. So in the methane reactor, you produce biogas, and the biogas can be stored and then can be cleaned up to produce methane. And that methane, you can also send it to a thermochemical process where methane will be converted to hydrogen, and that is cleaned and separated into hydrogen. So that is about 220 kg what we are targeting. Now the energy that is produced from the methane reactor can be used to run this whole biohub or the biorefinery. So this is where we can actually either produce methane, use the methane to run this whole plant, and also the surplus methane, about 65% of the methane is then converted into hydrogen. So the first reactor hydrogen that is producing only about 84 kgs of hydrogen, so that's not enough. So we have to go through this methane reactor and then convert the methane to hydrogen using the methane pyrolysis. And this shows that our economics also showed that we can achieve this 220 kgs or 200 kgs of hydrogen per day target, and the price is around $2 to $5 per kg. And wheat straw was found to be the ideal feedstock. And then in a commercial point of view, so a single biohub can produce a hydrogen that is enough to produce the fertilizer urea, because hydrogen can be used as a feedstock for production of the urea, and that can be used as a fertilizer, biofertilizer, or biourea on the farms. So the farms can be self-sufficient in producing their own fertilizer rather than going for the inorganic urea production. So this will create an income for the farms, and the farmers can come as a cooperative society and they can also build up this kind of biohub in a centralized facilities. And I thank my sponsors for this project. So it's a federal government project which is funded by the Australian government, and then it was managed by CSIRO and also GRDC, the Grain Research Institute. And my project in industry partners are Made Energy, and also I would like to take any questions if you have, and I would like to thank the organizers for giving me a chance to present my work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Prasad. And now we are going to discussion session. In Zoom link, in Zoom meeting, the participants can ask through chat room or directly to Mr. Prasad. And also in on-site, if you have any question for Mr. Prasad, just I'm gonna check the chat room. If anyone here having a question. Okay. There are 191 participants in the Zoom meeting. And a couple on site in Bali, Kuta. Oh, in Indonesia? It's okay, yeah. Yeah.
Produksi hidrogen dan metana secara biologi itu memang kita tahu itu jadi alamnya, dan ini kalau di tadi sempat dalam aspek mekanisme prosesnya itu membutuhkan banyak proses kimiawi dan biologi. Nah, terkait dengan hal ini tentu injeksi jaringan gas alam yang ada di kita di bumi ini begitu banyak dan juga pasti terdegradasi. Nah, dalam ikon seminar internasional ini, apakah dunia istilahnya mentolerir hal-hal yang bersifat yang bersifat nanti bisa merusak lingkungan, tentu ini pasti akan ada impact-nya secara lingkungan. Lalu di sini karena walaupun dia menggunakan bahan baku dari alam, tentu ketersediaan ke depan itu pasti akan sedikit. Nah, ini bagaimana dengan proyeksi ke depan tentang bicara tentang gas alam yang tentu kita ketersediaannya semakin di.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to translate it into English, Mr. Prasad.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, regarding your material, there are mechanism process using chemical and biological resources. Yeah.
Yes.
And it must be many impacts. Yeah, impact because of using biological and chemical process during the project. The impact on environment. Is there any impact on environment?
Yeah. Yes, okay.
The first question, and then there are next question. The natural resources. Yeah, natural resources, of course, will be reducing by time. So how do you your projection, future projection, something like, the projection about that. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks. I think it's a very good question, especially to cover all our participants. And thanks for that question. The first thing we have to understand that any organic waste, if it is left on the field or if it's sent to landfill, it will emit greenhouse gases, right? If you don't do anything, if you leave those organic materials like food waste or agriculture waste, if you don't do anything, if you leave it on the field or you send it to landfill, and if you don't capture that, so what happens? It will emit greenhouse gases. And those are basically, of course, you know what is the impact of these greenhouse gases. But what we are doing now is to utilize these lignocellulosic materials or agricultural residues. Sometimes some farmers will just burn this waste. I think maybe in Indonesia also they'll just burn the wheat straw. They don't do anything because they don't know what to do. So it is a waste there. So they just burn it. And that time also you are emitting greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide or oxides of nitrogen. So what we are saying is that you collect these waste materials and process it in a closed reactors, closed system. So if you see all these bottles, they only produce hydrogen or methane if the inside is anaerobic, means there's no air. So that microbes will only work under anaerobic conditions, means that there should not be any air. So that means that if there's a leak or something, yes, methane is coming out, but if it is leaking, then this process doesn't work. So it has to work only under anaerobic conditions, right? So then what we are doing is we are capturing that, and then we are using it as a energy resource. And then you can replace the natural gas. Now, natural gas is a fossil fuel, and it is limited. And you can replace that with methane and the hydrogen. So we are shifting, slowly we are shifting from use of fossil fuels. By 2050, Australia must have 100% renewables. Either it should be coming from solar or wind or from biogases, right? Now, as I said, gas substitution is much easier, right? You can use the existing infrastructure like gas network, and then what you need to do is just to build the reactors. But you can use the existing infrastructure to move the gas from source of production to source of utilization. So there won't be any net greenhouse gas emissions because it is a CO2 neutral, right? So the biomass, which will anyway emit greenhouse gases, are actually basically converted and stored and reused. And then if you're converting that to hydrogen in the future, so as I show you my final plan, I'm using the energy, everything that is produced on the site. There's no, all the red ones on the bottom is the energy requirements for the plant. And the methane that is produced from the second stage reactor is sufficient to actually take care of all the energy. So there is no fossil fuel electricity grid coming into this power plant or biorefinery, right? Now, the gas is used. Now the digested material, the effluent from this reactor will be used as a fertilizer on the fields. So we are recycling the nutrients present in this material as an organic fertilizer. So now you can see the same wheat straw is giving you hydrogen or methane, and then also the digested material, which can go as a compost or fertilizer. So you have this here, a fertilizer, and then you have the carbon dioxide that can be sold because it's pure. You can also sell it in the market. It has much higher value. It's around $200 per kg of carbon dioxide. So you can sell it in the greenhouses. They can improve their crop production. Then you have the hydrogen. We also get carbon. This is a graphene kind of carbon, and that has $600 value per kg, and that's also revenue. So nothing is wasted in this kind of a closed system, right? So it's a biological process. So the energy requirements are very little. So as you can see, the process is operated at at 37 degrees. This is the temperature requirements for this process. Okay, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it is satisfied. So I can get that there is no net greenhouse gases, yeah, around the world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because if you compare, it's basically all the biomass are CO2 neutral. Anything if you produce from biomass is CO2 neutral, right? So it means that you're not actually adding anything, and it is taking care of its own energy needs. So whatever you're producing, you're using on site, and the surplus you are selling it to the market. So that means you are actually reducing the fossil fuel energy consumption for the others. So that's why we can consider it as a net zero.
Yep.
And hydrogen is much better because when you burn hydrogen, you're only producing water. So then that helps in decarbonizing in the market.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Prasad. It's very comprehensive. Okay. I give one opportunity for the participants in Zoom meeting. If you have any question, you can put it on the chat room. But if there is no question, we would like to thanks for everyone here. Thank you very much for Mr. Prasad again for your kindness.
Thank you.
And your presentation, and also all the participants on site in Bali. I would like to say thanks for your attention and also participation. Okay, and we will give to the PIC of this room.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
See you again.
See you
bye.
again. Bye-bye.